This channel has been around for a while, and have I made a video on it before? I genuinely don't remember. Freedom Tunes, all right? It's much easier to get away with bad arguments if it's being presented in a satirical cartoon format. I have done this before? Well, let's do it again! The Woke Guide to Gender, okay? So the way videos like this typically work, and I know this because I've done this before, is these videos will present a stupid argument. I mean, real low IQ shit. Sorry, that's the secret debunk later video playlist. But because it's a quirky satirical cartoon, all the arguments they imply that end up being bullshit, they don't stand by it, you know? If you actually pin somebody down on this, they'll be like, "Oh, that was just a joke," you know? They get to hide behind the veil of satire where every position they take that ends up being falsifiable and provably wrong, they back off of it. And every position that they want to defend, they say, no, that was the serious argument. So we're going to ignore all comedy, and we are just going to respond to every argument, explicit and implied, laid out here, okay? It's going to be real factual-like, all right? Get ready for it. Let's do it.
Gender, not even real. Or biological sex. Whose idea was that? You may have thought that basic science / I having informed you that male and female are genuine distinct categories. But
oh, well, hold on. If you're going to make an argument, you got to make it right. So this is an appeal to intuition, which is by definition irrational. If you look with your own eyes. No. Also, wait. Who is arguing that male and female aren't distinct categories? The argument is just over whether or not they're socially constructed and whether or not they're bimodal versus bivariate. The video is significantly louder than I am. I was playing video games last. There we go. I turned it down a bit.
But alas, you're an idiot. Until recently, science told us that men had Y chromosome, male genitalia, the ability to get women pregnant, the blame for everything that ever goes wrong.
No, I don't think so.
And women had X chromosome, female genitalia, baby in her tummy, and lots to complain about.
Are we... I know that we're doing like the 1950s announcer bit. Should I criticize this as well? We have some issues we're working through right now. This is like some boomer comic. I hate my wife.
About, but all of this can be thrown out.
Okay, so let's address the actual argument so far. So the narrative that's being described thus far is that for all of human history, we've known the truth, okay? We've known that there are men and there are women. Now, I noticed this video hasn't really described the difference between gender and sex, so I'm going to assume the person who made this video doesn't think there's a difference. If you're interested in understanding what this guy is so upset about, it's that the past several decades of thorough biological scientific research has determined that what we previously considered to be bivariate is actually bimodal. See, we can do a little chart here. Hold on. We're going to pull up the paint stream really quick. So, scientists used to believe, well, I guess everyone used to believe, okay, that men and women, let's make it a little thicker. There we go. Men and women were like this, okay? Boop, boop. See, 2 points, all right? You have the X drawn with a mouse, Y, and you have the X, just like that, see? You had about 50-50, more or less, you know, and that's how people thought about it for a while. Now, of course, people don't think that anymore in the scientific community. This binary sort of understanding of sex. Now, what people tend to think of it as is bimodal. A mode means a point in the data which has the largest, the greatest number of cases attributed to it. So in this case, now we're looking at something a little more like this. What does it mean to be a male or a female? Because if you look at the science, there are XXY males. Are there not? There are XXY males. They have penises and they have higher degrees of androgen sensitivity, and if you looked at them, they would just look like me, I guess. But they are XXY. So the chromosomal difference isn't just a one-to-one point. It's, well, kind of a spectrum. And likewise, what about intersex people? What about people who have some characteristics of mixed genitalia? What about people who have hormonal imbalances that are more characteristic of people of the other sex while they maintain the characteristics of the sex that people assign them at birth? See, scientists, and again, I want to be clear here, I'm not talking about sociologists. I'm not talking about you know, gender theorists. I'm saying people whose job it is to study human genealogy, to study human biological nature, decided that actually the characteristics that we associate with being male or female are really just a big mishmash of different characteristics. And if you chart those out, you find that there are males who are like here, you know, instead of being here. Like a little thought experiment. What does it mean to be a man? Well, it can't be XY chromosomes because there are XXY chromosomal men who are otherwise uh, physically, I mean, they look very masculine, certainly. They have the genitalia, they have the reproductive capabilities. So it's not chromosomes. Most of the time it's chromosomes, but not always. What about body hair? That's characteristic predominantly, but that differs based on ethnic lines. And also, there are hairier females and hairless males. So, not that. What about genitalia? Well, there are intersex people who have, some people are born with, let's say, indeterminable genitalia when it comes to categorization, but their whole rest of their bodies are otherwise very much male or female. It's a spectrum. And I understand that this spectrum, this complexity, isn't that meaningful in conventional parlance. It's not. Day to day, most people get by their lives believing there are two sexes, male and female. And functionally, that's an acceptable mentality to go through life. But if you want to make cringy internet videos where you criticize other people for being anti-science, you might want to educate yourself on that science. See, again, if you would shut up, this wouldn't be an issue. But you made a video on it. So you should read up on it a little bit, maybe? The funny thing is, trans people almost never talk about sex being bimodal. The trans stuff is about gender, more so than sex. This is called the woke guide to gender, but we open with a spiel on chromosomes. So this guy is going to be conflating sex and gender the whole video, which is something I'm going to have to keep pointing out. Another, let's say, betrayal of this person's ignorance on the subject.
Why? Well, first and foremost, those last things on each list were stereotypes I wrote as a joke. So let's just examine the first three. Some men lose their anatomy, and they're still men. Also, some women are infertile, but they don't stop being female. Also, there are...
hold on. Wait. Hold on. This reminds me a little bit of the Sargon argument. So Sargon of Akkad, he said that a woman is somebody who reproduces. He's actually said you're less of a woman if you can't reproduce anymore. This guy's not biting that bullet. He's acknowledging that the characteristics that he just listed, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit too fast, but I suspect he's going to get back into cringe territory soon. Yeah, like is an 80-year-old woman not a woman? I mean, she's infertile, but she's a woman, right? If we say that a woman becomes less of a woman when she's infertile, then we're not really referring to like biological sex. We're instead referring to social roles, which is, funnily enough, even more of a socially constructive perspective than I have on the subject. But
being female, also there are chromosomal abnormalities which result in a person not having the usual XX or XY chromosome pair. Therefore, gender isn't real and everyone can go home.
Oh, wait. Hold on. No. First of all, my friend, none of what you're talking about right now is gender. You're talking about sex. And the conclusion people derive from the information that you provided is that sex is bimodal. That the vast majority of people fit on the two, like, modal positions, But some don't. Like this fun individual with the Is that mascara or eyeliner? I don't know the difference between makeup, but this nice person um, demonstrates it doesn't always fit on the modal points. So it's that sex is bimodal, not that gender isn't real. Now, there are arguments being made for gender being a social construct. Sure. But that doesn't logically follow from what you provided.
Chromosome pair. Therefore, gender isn't real and everyone can go home. That's right, not every man is identical to every other man and not every woman is identical to every other woman. Therefore, sex is a meaningless category which will...
Wait, you just said gender, now you're saying sex again. I'm sorry. Okay, if you're critiquing an ideological framework, you have to use definitions from within that framework. So, this person's trying to critique like woke gender ideology. Fine, do the critique. But you can't make that critique if you can't distinguish between sex and gender. You lose the ability to make that critique. Because now, like, I have to spend, instead of like acknowledging arguments that you've made, you're not even operating within the framework, you know? It would be like if you were trying, it's like you're a religious person and you're trying to convince an atheist that something they're doing is wrong, and you're using biblical arguments. Even if you believe your arguments are valid, they don't even apply. So if you're critiquing the woke gender ideology thing, all this does is make you look like kind of uneducated. Which is funny, because if you're willing to acknowledge that sex is bimodal, you'd think you'd be willing to acknowledge that sex and gender aren't the same thing, but okay. All right, let's see.
Will only be done away with when we finally overthrow men. This is
No. Okay. No, come on.
how definitions work. For example, you may think a dog is different from a human because they walk on 4 legs, are less cognitively sophisticated than us, and don't use toilets. But guess what? Some dogs have 2 legs. And in California, humans don't use toilets either. I found some exceptions to the rule of a limited definition. So I guess the differences between species is a social construct after all.
Yes. Humans had to invent a definition that described the differences between species. But that definition is not how many legs you walk on. As I understand it, the difference between speciation or species differentiation is the degree to which they can healthily reproduce with one another. And then you have them categorized within like a broader, again, socially constructed metrics for what we consider valuable. So, for example, you know, all the different species of like insects, we have subcategories for them. But those subcategories are based on things we find readily identifiable. How many abdomen segments, thoraxes do they have? Or how many legs do they have? But if we were a different species, we might have differentiated them by color, you know, like these can't reproduce with these, but we'll group them together um, because they're these ones are all blue and these ones are all green. Species differentiation is a social construct. What you're mistakenly believing is that something being a social construct means it doesn't exist or that it shouldn't exist. Social constructs are things we make to serve a purpose for us. What's a chair? Construct a definition for a chair that includes all chairs, but doesn't include anything that isn't a chair. It's not possible. It's not possible. You actually can't do it. There are, yeah, it's not doable. It's a social construct, but we still use chair in common language because it serves a social purpose. And that's what's being done here. Same for species. Though obviously the differentiation between species is not as arbitrary as the definition for a chair. It serves a scientific purpose. It's still ultimately one that had God rolled dice differently and we've been a different species, if we saw in a different color spectrum, if we did X or Y or Z or whatever, might have categorized them differently.
And what about intersex people? They prove that sex exists on a spectrum.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like that. See? It's a spectrum. It's just a bimodal spectrum. So the vast majority of people are going to fit on either end of the spectrum. But yeah. And that's fine. It's not a prescriptive thing. If you're more towards the middle, if you're intersex or whatever, pog. Right. Yeah. Just, yeah, no harm.
Because the word spectrum means everyone falls into two categories except for a handful of infinitesimally rare exceptions.
No, hold on. See, binary means two options, not two options with exceptions. That's not what a binary means. The existence of any exceptions would be enough to prove that it's not a binary. Also, this isn't really a representative sampling. How many people are intersex? About 1 to 2 in 100 people born in the United States are intersex. Holy shit, that's quite a few people. So how many people are in each of these blocks here? We've got 3, 6, 10, 13, 16 to 20, 26? 26 times 6, 10, 14. 26 times 14 times 2. So 26, 50 times 14, roughly. 15 times 50 times 14, so 500, 500, 700? About 720 people. 728? Thank you, chat. Sorry. So 728 to 1. When in reality, it would be more 50 to 100 to 1. That would make this look a little bit different, wouldn't it? Also, intersex isn't the only category of person who fits in between the two bimodal points. You know? Yeah, first of all, if we're talking globally, we're talking like tens of millions of people. That's a lot of people. And second of all, you don't have to be intersex to not be on either of the bimodal points. Because the argument scientists make is that because sexual categorization is based on a ton of characteristics, deviation from a few of those characteristics can also be enough to push you further towards the center of the spectrum. I mean, take me, for example. I'm 27 years old and I look like this. I know people my age who are femboys. In many identifiable ways, they're less male than I am. Not less of a man, but in terms of the categories associated genetically, biologically, with being male, they're less that than I am. Depending on how you categorize it, you know? I mean, the person in the video just made the argument that you're like a woman who can't give like pregnant anymore, isn't less of a woman, right? Would we say that a person is less of a man for being a femboy? Well, I guess they may, depending on what they get off to. Well, depending on how they say it. The argument is that depending on what characteristics you value, people can fall more in line with the center of that spectrum. Once you accept that things are bimodal in nature, it's... Let me just put it this way. These arguments get very complicated. I'll put it this way, okay? This guy and I probably have the same chromosomes, okay? But this guy is further towards the corner of the spectrum than me, okay? That's all I'm saying, all right? That's the argument that I'm making, all right? He's further over, okay? I don't care. He's that guy is edited. It doesn't matter. He's real in our hearts, okay? Jesus. God. He's real in our hearts. It's a real person, but the picture is edited, okay? That's, all right, let's just continue, okay?
But wait, you may be asking. I thought sex was defined as that procreative act between a man and woman, and that we label people male or female because their role in this act, or their sex, affects their role within the family and thus society, given that both institutions are literally built atop the sexual act.
No? This is historically illiterate as well. You heard of ancient Greece? You think the family dynamic is Yeah, this is first of all, this is an appeal to nature, which is fallacious by definition. And second of all, no. There have been plenty of family structures throughout human history in many different cultures that have had wildly different perspectives on how families were raised. In fact, for most of human history, children were raised collectively by the village. So the family structure, this thing that you have up in the top left that you've described as like the origin of everything, this is the nuclear family. This is 200 years old. Human organized society is 10,000 years old. This is a very new concept right here. Yeah, 200 years old at most. This is a very silly argument. Also, if you unironically believe that male and female are defined by their like roles in the reproductive act, then wouldn't you be arguing against the position you took earlier? Because earlier you said that a woman isn't less of a woman if she can't give birth. So which stance are we taking on this? Oh, anyway, I want to realize I misphrased something earlier. That I want to clarify super quickly. I said that a femboy would be less male. I think the more accurate language there would be that by most people's definitions, a femboy would have less male associated characteristics than myself. And that depending on how a person defines being male or how many characteristics a person associates with being male, then you could make the argument that that might move a person somewhere in the bimodal spectrum. The extent to which bimodal sex orientation is determined by social roles and by biology is, again, arbitrary, which is the reason why sex is also considered a social construct. It's true, by the way. You can talk to biologists about it if you want to.
And isn't this a concrete fact which is totally unthreatened by some people's subjective view of themselves as being assigned the wrong gender? And to that...
No. This is, again, an appeal to intuition. Here are a bunch of historical and social facts that are objectively wrong. And isn't this true in spite of all the crazy transes? Well, sure. Well, no, not really.
As being assigned the wrong gender, and to that I say, shut up! The facts are clear! Biological sex is a social construct created...
Wait, hold on. That's true. Again, this is... You can pick up a science textbook if you want. Yeah, it is. If you find that threatening, isn't that on you? I mean, shouldn't you be the one to justify why your feelings take precedent over scientific analysis? Like, why do I have to justify myself here? I'm the one casually pointing at a textbook. I'm the one gesturing at existing research. But you're the one acting with all the arrogance of somebody who's standing on top of a pile of facts. You can't even get some of the basic arguments against our positions correctly. The funny thing is, I could do a better job with this video. If I really wanted to, I could probably poke more holes in, like, the woke gender ideology that's being targeted here than he could. I'd be wrong, but I could make a much better argument. And I could probably make a better video, too. Well, I'm not an animator, so I can't do that, but I could script the video better.
Created by men, and one day women are going to...
Wait, hold on. No. Literally nobody says that the entire concept of sex was created by men. I have never heard that argument in my life.
And one day women are going to rise up against this tyrannical male oppression, and then us girls will finally be in charge.
Is this 2016? What year am I in? Like, unironically, why are we mixing the woke guide to gender with, like, cringy second wave feminist characterizations? It's a really weird juxtaposition, you know? Yeah, we need to leave 2016. This is some Big Red shit. Can we get a Big Red cartoon, little caricature in the corner?
So you had better watch out with your arbitrary categorization of nonsense that doesn't exist, or us polygender asexual interpangea demimores will...
Can we get out of 2016? Can we please get out of 2016? This is so boring, man. Come on. The people who make these arguments have to know that, like, they've worn really thin, right? They have to know.
We'll beat you senseless for not memorizing all of the new pronouns we just...
Get me out of 2016. Get me out. Get me out of 2016. All we need is Big Red, Trigglypuff, and that one lady who screamed when Trump got elected, and we've got the perfect trifecta here.
It's made up.
Okay, very nice. Please, let me out. Oh God, what a banger. No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not a gender. Oh man. Oh, that's good. Ooh. Oh, gotta save my voice for tomorrow. I just a challenge to Freedom Tunes. Can we talk? Not a debate. You don't have to, because like you don't want to debate these topics with me. But like, can we just talk about the not being able to move out of 2016 thing? This video came out 3 days ago, but it's not. It's 5 years old. This is a 5-year-old video. Did you make this 5 years ago and you've just been waiting? I just want to talk. Can we just have a conversation? Things just haven't changed in 5 years. The thing is, that's not really true, though. The discourse has evolved beyond it, you know? Even people like Lauren Southern understand this. Their arguments have... Even the Republican Party gets this. Most of the big conservative outlets these days are focusing on, like, child puberty blockers. That's the, like, the big... That's the, like, progressive line in the sand that's being fought over right now. That's the big thing that people fight over. That's the whole thing now. But this is 2016 stuff. It's... Man.